Hi guys, it's LJ Network here, and today we're going to take a look at the full video of Gardening Australia, A Year in Pete's Patch from 2009. And I was so surprised that no one has ever done the full video of this before, so I might as well be the first to do so. Anyways, let's see the full video. Gardening Australia, A Year in Pete's Patch, take one, and action!
Let's start from the very beginning. What's so special about this DVD anyway? Well, it's not like any other where you just sit down on your backside and watch it and do nothing. This one is a kind of a garden tool, like a fork or a rake. In other words, you watch a bit of it and then you go out into the garden and you work, because it's all about how to grow vegetables organically right the way throughout the year. In other words, it's dealing with every month. We're also going to the subtropics to see how to grow vegetables with Jenny, and right up to the Northern Territory to the full tropics with Leonie, how to grow veggies. And how do you do it? Look, we'll show you how to sow, how to plant, how to actually prepare the soil to make it lovely and rich. In other words, it's how to grow vegetables so at the end of the season, the soil is infinitely more fertile than when you started, and that's by using different types of manure and even green manure. We'll show you how to sow it and how to harvest it and what to do about it. In other words, you've got the blooming lot. Let's get stuck into it. You might find this hard to believe, but more than 400,000 people appear to be withered. Don't be tricked. This is the potato bed. I planted it last year, and underneath all this withered foliage is a sea of potatoes. Let's have a look. These are what they call pink eyes. Let's have a look what's down there. And there they are, and they're absolutely amazing. Look at that. These are amongst the most delicious of all the spuds you can eat. What's next? Well, these are Kennebecs. Kennebecs are a bit bigger. Right, straight in here, underneath, you've got to be careful you don't fork them with this one because they spread all over the place. Look at that. Aren't they absolutely marvellous? And look at the size of some of these spuds here. They're beautiful, magnificent eating. And here, they call these Nicola. These I love because they've got this beautiful, sweet, golden flesh. And there they are. Utterly delicious to eat and incredible yields. Now I'm going to dig this whole lot out so you can see what kind of a yield we have. But first of all, let's have a look at the carrots. Well, as you can see, it's an absolutely magnificent crop, right? In fact, there's enough carrots in this area to feed a family for month after magnificent month. These, by the way, are Manchester table and they are quite superb. As for the parsnips, look, let's see what they look like. There they are. Cool. Look at the size of them. But I always like to wait until parsnips have been either frosted a bit or gone through a real cool period because it sweetens them up magnificently. Beetroot, look, I've tried different times this year. Look, for example, look at this one here. This is the golden beetroot. There they are there. You can see how close they are. Right, let's have a look at it. There's my knife. There we are. Oh, they're lovely. And they're quite tender, by the way. But you can see the colour here. Look at that. And they taste just like a beetroot. They've got a most beautiful flavour and they're fantastic in salads. And yet, just the opposite are these here. These are called bull's blood. I'm not joking. Look at the foliage, it's almost black. It's an old-fashioned variety and it's unbelievably delicious. And it's a very dark colour with pale rings. Here we are. Look at that there. Absolutely sweet. I think the sweetest of all the beetroot I've ever tasted. And by the way, if you're growing Swedes and they start getting a little bit mildewy, don't worry about that. If they're already achieving a good size. But I'll tell you what, if they're planted too closely, you get little ones, and if they're well spaced, you get marvellous ones. And all with all the root vegetables. always screw off the foliage to stop it kind of withering away the roots. And now, let's go back to the spuds. And that's the last one out. And when you think about it, what an extraordinary yield from a small area. And I've already harvested 2 full bags from the same place. And what we've got enough potatoes here for magnificent winter eating. It's just absolutely superb. You know, Tasmania has a relatively cool climate. And we can grow the most superb tomatoes because they've got this fantastic flavour. And that's because they ripen at a perfect temperature of about 24 or 25 degrees. This one here, it's called Moneymaker. And it's a beauty because it's got these huge trusses almost down to the ground. But there's a whole range of different types of tomatoes here. Look at this one here. They call this one First Prize, and it's also Pot Prize. It's got these very coarse leaves here. But the trusses are massive and the fruit itself is quite huge and unbelievably delicious to eat. You know, it's marvellous. And of course there's great trusses everywhere, again almost to the ground. Here's another one. It's called Tigrella. It's a weird looking tomato. In fact, it's kind of stripy. Here's one here, look at that. You see, they have these greenish sort of stripes on them, and of all the tomatoes that you can eat, this one here, there it is, Tigrella, is probably the most delicious and the sweetest of all. It's a beauty. But you know, in the tomato bed, you also grow the other members of the same tribe, the Solanum. And so we've got eggplants coming on, despite Tasmania's cool climate, and they've been flowering, they're doing well, and also, of course, different types of capsicums. But the great surprise to me was the amazing winter squash. Look at these. They look like giant pear-shaped pumpkins. In fact, they taste like pumpkins, right, and they'll keep like a pumpkin all the way through the winter. But it's a winter squash, and the difference between a winter squash and a pumpkin, you can get your thumbnail in the hide of a pumpkin, but not in these. And look at these too. These are summer squash. They're lovely, they're kind of zucchini. They can be eaten at this side and they're quite delicious. But I'll tell you what, can you see the way that the pumpkin tribe has started to invade the sweet corn as well? They're even fruiting in there. This is called sugar pie, and it's so sweet and so richly flavoured, it's magnificent for pumpkin pies. And you see, all the pumpkins and the squashes, they use the sweet corn because they're a climbing plant. They climb up right to the top. You get this marvellous combination of the male flowers of the sweet corn and also the lovely yellow flowers of the pumpkins all together. But I'll tell you something, there's something else that I'd like to show you. Now, you saw this giant pumpkin earlier in the programme. If you love the flavour of pumpkins, don't bother growing one of these to eat because they taste less than the flavour of a cup of warm water, but they're grown mainly for show. Every good veggie patch is a place of constant experimentation, and here these beans are a perfect example. And the experiment here is very late planting. These were sown about Christmas time, no problem at all, because it means we're going to be cropping right the way through, right till early winter. They call these, by the way, purple queen. There they are. They're a deep purple colour, they're lovely and crisp and brittle, magnificent eating. And the interesting thing is, when you cook them, they go green. And that's purple queen. But look at these here. These are redlands. And you can pick them when they're very young like that and eat them raw. They're magnificent in salads, but again, they're lovely and crisp. But the great rule with all beans, you never stop picking them, because if you do, they'll stop producing. What about the sweet corn? These were an experiment too, right? Remember when I sowed the seed, I put in some charcoal. There's still a bit of it around there on the surface. And what's the result? Well, for a start, this particular row, the charcoal one, it's greener, it's more vigorous, and we're getting up to 6 giant cobs per plant, so it does work. But what about actually harvesting these things? How do you know when they're ready? Well, you can open up and have a peep, or when that little beady thing at the top there, when it's gone all brown, that's a fair idea. But to harvest, look at this. Just push it straight down like that. And then, watch this. You open it up like that, and there it is. Utterly delicious, marvellously fresh, right, when you've got to the end there like that. Perfect sweet colour. But there is something else I want to show you. A week or so back you saw me harvest a magnificent crop of spud from this little bed. I can't believe in wasting space, so I filled it with lettuces and silver beet and other leafy veggies. But the thing that these plants love more than anything else is a high nitrogen fertiliser. I'm using fish emulsion with a little bit of seaweed concentrate in about 8 litres of water, only a small amount, a very weak brew. And watch this. Just water it in, and if you do this, about every week or so, very weak, they power on and they're absolutely magnificently flavoured. I'm harvesting the spring onions and the leeks, a terrific crop. People wonder what we do with this stuff. Look, I give it away. Hello, I've got a little present for you. There's a leek for you, right? And some spring onions, right? And here you are. That's for your tea tonight.
Thank you.
And that's for your supper.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Well, that's finished. Now look, I want to show you something. Another experiment. I planted carrots with all the onion tribe that was in this bed. These are called Majestic Red, and just look at the blooming size of them. I mean, isn't that absolutely fantastic? You can do it, and they are the natural companion plants. Now, what am I going to do with the bed now? I'll tell you. I'm going to actually plant some broad beans here. It's the perfect time to put them in, and this is what you do. Here's my little furrower. See, it makes a little groove there like that. At a walking pace. And another one. The beans will go in here. And now to put them in. These are called aqua dolce. They're beautiful, lovely and nutty. Watch how they go in here. Like that. Just sprinkle them in like that. See how they're falling in there? You've seen me do this year after blooming year anyway. Right? And there's the other one. Right? There they are. Just dribble them in like that. If you get too many close together, it's no big deal. And to cover them over is the simplest job in the world. There. Now watch that. See? They're in. Anybody can do that. Look, if an old geezer like me can do this, so can you. They're in, and they'll be up in about 2 weeks. It's as simple as that. Now here's a lovely bed. We've just harvested the cabbages, and I want to use up all this border area. So I'm going to put different types of lettuces in. Some that you've probably never heard of. These are the Amish deer's tongue. Very long like that, very tender. And it's one of these pick and pick again ones. And look at the way I plant them. Right, look. Just put them in, right, they're only small, like that. And they look floppy, but they pick up. A big gap, and there's a reason for that. There's another one, and another one. Now the other lettuce I'm going to put in, this is a politically incorrect lettuce. There they are, they look a bit pale. They call them a drunken woman. Don't ask me why, right? And it's exactly the same thing. Take them out, and this time they're going in between. Like that. Little ones are the best. There they are there. See, going in, just poke it in like that. Here's another one here. So easy. And there is something else. I want to show you this stuff. It is what they call French thyme. It's much stronger than the English one. I think it's better. It's got a beautiful flavour. And to plant it, and it is a perennial, right? All the way around the edge, see these little clumps here like that? All the way around the edge, like that. There's another one there. See how you put them in? And what will happen with these, they'll kind of grow and flop over. And they're marvellous weed suppressors too. You know, I can't get over how deeply rooted these sweet corn plants are. There's no doubt, look at the roots there, they're quite massive and they certainly go down a long way. But what they've been doing, they've been cropping well. We had over 70 magnificent cobs from this tiny area, and yet they've also been sucking the life out of this soil. I'm going to replenish that too. I know it sounds mad, you know, but I actually love this hard work. There's nothing better than hard work. But I'll tell you something else. This row of sweet corn, that was the one that I planted with charcoal last year, you might remember, as an experiment. And these are the ones that every plant, believe it or not, produced up to 6 magnificent cobs. So it does work. Now to get rid of the rest. That's the last one. And now for the other half of the bed, the pumpkins. Now I've harvested most of the pumpkins. They've been stored away or eaten. And I've even got rid of the trash too, and that'll be composted. There's a few left, and it's interesting to look at them. I mean, look at this one, for example. This is the great golden nugget. It should be only a third this size, but look at the size of these. It's still good eating. Here's another one. This is the magnificent sugar pie, so beautiful and sweet. But there's one thing that they all have in common, all these that I've harvested, right? This is a lovely butternut, right? Wonderful. Right? They've all got this bit thing attached. In other words, when I cut them and when you harvest them, you always leave a good length of the old vine still attached. You make sure it doesn't break off there, because otherwise you've got problems. And this was one major blunder that I made. I mean, look at this. This is called a green-watered Hubbard squash, and don't be put off by the name because it's absolutely delicious eating. It's a kind of pumpkin, only it's sweeter. And they're supposed to keep all winter if necessary, but I made this big mistake. I tried to lift it by its stalk and it broke off. And you know what that means? It'll mean that round here now it'll go mouldy and the whole thing will be ruined, so it's got to be eaten straight away. But there is something else. Look at this. I said I was going to replenish the soil, all that lovely fertility. I'm going to put in green manure. And what I'm using, by the way, is all the old pea and bean packets that I had in here, and also sunflower seeds. It means that this lot here, when it grows, will go about that high, lovely and lush and sappy, and I'll dig the whole blooming lot in. But there's something else I want to show you, and it's all about lime. This is lime, but it's lime in the raw. This is what it looks like. It's limestone. And what lime does in the ground, it alters the pH, that is the acid-alkaline balance, and makes it sweeter. So lime itself is not a fertiliser. To shove this in the ground is a total waste of space. It's got to be finely ground like this. This is finely ground limestone. It's absolutely magnificent. The worms love it, but you don't use it in alkaline soil, and you certainly don't use it around acid-loving plants. There it is. But sometimes you can buy stuff like this. I bought this, and it's coarse. It's full of great big lumps, and it means that 50% of this is useless. In fact, you may as well use road gravel as far as I'm concerned. But you know, this is the interesting thing, and it's amazing. here's that stuff I just broke off the rock, right? There it is there. You know what they do? They actually heat this in a great big kiln so it's red hot. And then they let it cool down, and when it's cooled down completely, it's changed its form completely. It becomes what they call quicklime, and that's far too volatile to handle because it gets very hot when it's wet. And so what they do, they water it. And when it's watered and gets hot and cools down, it's changed its form again and becomes this stuff here. This is the fine white lime, what I call builder's lime. Right? Hydrated lime or slaked lime, there it is there. Very quick to act, and you only need about half as much around the plants, right? And it's very, very rapid indeed. But look, there's another form of calcium too, and it's this here. They call this gypsum, and it's used to break up heavy clay soils. But even though it's calcium, it doesn't make the soil more alkaline. What it will do with very, very alkaline soils, it makes them slightly more acidic. That's how good it is. But it's great for breaking up heavy clay. But the best of the lot is this stuff here. This is what they call dolomite limestone. There it is. What's the difference? Well, it's ground limestone, but the limestone also contains another mineral. It's magnesium, so it's magnesium limestone. And this is the best of the lot because you've got a choice of two. Brilliant stuff. And you just put it on a good double handful for every square metre like that. These are the bush and climbing beans we've been growing all summer. And they've cropped marvellously. What I'm doing now is cutting them off at ground level to relieve the roots in the soil. That's because they're full of nitrogen down there. And of course they're full of dead beans. There's quite a pile. But these beans that are hanging there, they're not going to be wasted. There they are, they're all lovely and dry, right? And in fact, these can be stored often for months or even years, and they're perfect for soups and stews and all that kind of a thing, so don't waste them. But look, this lot here, they still have a bit of drying off to do. What I want to do now is plant something else in this garden. What I'm going to do in this bed, I'm going to plant some winter hardy leafy crops such as spinach and even broccoli. And what I've done already, I've put down some dolomite limestone and some blood and bone, and I've also got the advantage of the roots of those beans that are full of nitrogen as well. And all that remains now is to dig it, but look how I'm digging it. I'm not turning the soil over, but I'm just kind of loosening it like that. There it is. And keeping the top part on the top. And the reason why is because that's where all the nourishment is. The days of turning it over have gone for good. You'll notice that I'm not planting grooves, but I'm making little ridges. And that's because I'm going to sow spinach here, and spinach must have absolutely perfect drainage, right? In other words, I'm being very, very careful here. And another one over there. See how easy it is? See that? It's quite simple. Just to make a little groove like that to get that extra bit of perfect drainage. And now to put in the seed. And it doesn't matter if they're a bit close together, because they can be, and they must be, ruthlessly thin. Now look at the back filling. That's it. Very quick. All they need now is a good watering, and now for the next row. And it's exactly the same. There we are. Groove along the top. But this time, it's a different type of spinach. This is called English Giant. Look at this. The seed is big just the same, and there's plenty of it. There it is there, see? And sowing. All the way along here. And by the way, spinach is so tough that it can freeze solid during winter and still be beautifully edible. It's the toughest of all. Backfill, like that, and it's in, and it's on its way. And now a bit of water because it needs it. This is the ultimate health food. It's kale. There's about a dozen different varieties, and this one here, it's called Russian red. And the reason why, apart from the fact it comes from Siberia, is because look at that midrib there. Can you see it's kind of reddy, sort of lilac colour? Right? And it's absolutely magnificent, and it's also called raggy jack too. What's good about it? Well, for a start, it's absolutely crammed with valuable minerals and vitamins. In fact, it contains 8 times more vitamin C than oranges. And what you do to eat it, you can eat it raw. I strip off the outer leaf like that and leave the midrib, and that's the part you eat. It's delicious in salads. It's delicious eaten raw. It's nothing more than a primitive cabbage. You can also cook it. I boil it and drink the juice as well. It is absolutely fantastic, and best of all, it can stand the most intense cold. The best kale of all, I reckon, is you've got to dig through the snow to get at it. And it'll grow basically in any cool and temperate and even subtropical areas. So if you can, grow some kale. But what about the broad beans? I only sowed the seed a matter of weeks ago, and look at the way they've grown. And in fact, they too can stand the winter cold, no problem. If there is a problem, they get a bit soft sometimes, right? And that means they get attacked by a black fly. But there is a solution. It's sulfate of potash. What it does, it toughens up the leaves, and not only that, induces early flowering and even gives you a better crop. So you can see where we're at. The entire garden is ready for winter. These tomatoes and capsicums will be gone in no time. That's for onions. And as for the rest of the garden, look, the broccoli's going berserk, so is the English spinach. There are plants growing everywhere, and what we've got is the best food of all, the most wonderful eating right through winter and spring, and it's as simple as that. I know it sounds weird, but today is one of the most significant days of the year for onions. In a way, it's their birthday. You see, it's the shortest day of the year, and from now on, every day is going to get a little bit longer. And it's perfect right now to sow and to plant them. And I know exactly where to start. Look at this. Absolutely lovely fertile soil. In fact, this soil here grew a magnificent crop of tomatoes in this bed. So it's still a bit acidic. That's why I put dolomite all over the place, because onions love slightly limey soil. I've already started, look at this. I've put a row of seedlings in, but look how tiny these seedlings are. They're very small indeed, because if you make the mistake of using big onion seedlings at this time, they just bolt to seed in November and you've lost the blooming lot. So there they're in, and you'll notice also that they're all lying flat. That's how you plant them. All you do is just bury the roots and leave them lying flat like that, and within a week they'll pick up and they're on the way. But I'm going to try a marvellous experiment. I've done it before with charcoal, and now I'm going to use the charcoal with onions. Here it is. What is it? It's charcoal, and it's pulverised cow manure and a bit of sand, and there it is, and it's really been broken up quite small. I've also got a bucket of water here. I'm going to put in a tiniest amount of seaweed concentrate. There it is, tiny amount, and believe it or not, some sulfate of potash. Now that'll dissolve there like that in that water. Stir it in, it won't do me hand any harm. And pour, not all of it, but some of it into here like that. Just a bit so it soaks in, and it makes a kind of a what? A kind of a slurry. There it is there. Now this is an experiment to see how they grow. Watch this. It's certainly a sticky old groove. Look, I don't even know how it works really, but you just put it in the bottom of this kind of groove like that. That's all this charcoal, right, and the other stuff as well. All the way along the bottom. It worked marvellously with the sweet corn and the tomatoes. And then just simply put in the seedling onions like that. See, now I'm laying them flat there, like that, and backfill. Now that is what I call a blooming leek. Look at the size of that. This, by the way, is called an elephant leek, but the reason why it's so big is because the soil itself is so absolutely fertile, it's absolutely crammed with manure, and it's beautiful and tender as well. That's the part you eat there, right, and you cut that part off, and if you want you can use the top part for making soup. It's superb, but there's something else. Look at this. These are the spring onions I planted not long ago. Here they are, right? It's a good size. You take them out, you shake off the soil, there they are, and they're absolutely magnificent. And these are among the easiest of all onions to grow. All you do is just scatter the seed thickly like grass seed, and up they come. It's as simple as that. And something else. This bed here is all the winter leaf vegetables, and they're growing like mad despite the cold. I want to give them a bit of fertiliser, but it's got to be quick acting, so I'll use a liquid. That's absolutely full of water. A tiny amount of fish emulsion, a tiny amount of seaweed concentrate, little bit of a mix, and watch. There it is. These winter lettuces absolutely adore it. They come on marvellously. The Japanese greens, they are absolutely fantastic, and again, they drink this stuff up and they keep on growing. Here's the interesting one about celery. It loves a liquid feed, but remember this, that with celery, it's impossible to overwater it. They need that stuff, right? Otherwise they'll bolt to seed. You've also got broccoli, coming on fast, we'll be picking that soon. And can you remember the English spinach I sown, what, a matter of weeks ago? Look at it, it's up. And in a matter of what, 2 or 3 weeks, we'll be picking it. And as you can imagine, the answer is always in the soil as long as it's fertile. You know, it's time to harvest the beetroot before it starts to get coarse. This is lovely and tender. And by the way, when you harvest beetroot, you never cut the top off. You screw it off like that. It's pretty tough, but screw it off. And you know why? Because otherwise it will bleed like mad when you cook it. Now it won't. And you see at the very base, often you get a little kind of a pointed root, right? Never try and cut it off if you can, because again it will bleed through that. Now look, you can see how they're coming out, quite easy. I'll just tuck these over, there, like that. And when you get a great big one, like that, there's a perfect one there, right? When you get a big one like that, don't be put off by the size, right? Because quite often if they've been grown fast, they're still lovely and tender, and that will cook to perfection. And you see that there? That is a slug. It was. It's gone now. Right? Get rid of them like that. There's more. Here's a beetroot with a different colour. Look at that. Right? This is one of the great golden ones. And again, don't be put off by the size. Look at the colour of the flesh. See it there? Isn't it absolutely lovely? Right? And again, it's perfect for harvesting. But there's also something else. It's a lovely Swede, and they are. And they are huge. They've been growing here a long time. Look, you can just pull the tops off like that. And the great thing about these, they've already been through several hard frosts, and that makes them big, but lovely and sweet in the bin. And now for the carrots. They've been growing here since March, and I think they've got a reasonable size. Let's have a look at them. There they are. And they're lovely ones, right? That one's got a little bit of a scab on it, so he's no good. And again, remember, the first thing you do with carrots, get the tops off as a matter of urgency. This is the great nightmare, of course, in supermarkets. These silly looking carrots have got tops on because they wither away. Right? There's something else too I've got to show you. I've just realised that we put some parsnips in here, and I think they're still around. Here they are. Look at the size of that. Now that is what I call a good parsnip. Again, off with the top. And that is magnificent roasted. Now what I'm going to do now, I'm going to clear the whole of this bed because I want to put some spuds in here. I love digging the soil. I always dig with a fork so I don't have to cut the worms in half. But it's one of the great pleasures of life. I also use a heavy fork to smash up the clods too, right? Even though it might bruise the worms. But what I'm doing here, I'm preparing a bed for potatoes. I won't put any fertiliser in at the moment, but what I'm doing mainly is just breaking the whole thing up. But I feel that it's going to be absolutely magnificent. I'm taking out trenches for the potatoes, and boy have I got some beauties. Look at this for example. I know they're weird looking. They call them pink fir apple. They're a very old variety, they're waxy and they're so delicious. And when you plant them, look, all you do is just simply drop them in like that. See how far apart? Quite close. That's all. I'll fill those later. Right? Another one I've got here, right, is called brown ale. There it is, they're the best of all the mashers, magnificent floury potato. And again, drop them straight in, like that. See how I'm just putting them in? You can just walk along and drop them in. Only 4 or 5 across 2 metres like that. Right? More to come along here. What's the next one? These are Bismarcks. Bismarcks, by the way, are those lovely new potatoes. Honestly, they're buttery, they're so delicious. You can eat a great bowl of them. In they go, there they are. Squash them down a bit. And now for the rest. And what a huge variety I have here. These are the magnificent pink eyes. Lovely and waxy and sweet, right? Over here we've got, I think, are probably among the best of all the spuds. King Edwards, they're floury, they roast to perfection and mashed, they're magnificent, right? Here, these are the famous Dutch cream, waxy with a lovely yellow flesh, lovely eating, magnificent chips, right? And if you like a quick cooking spud, you can't beat the red-skinned, white-fleshed Tasman. And now to get them in. And now to backfill, and it's so easy. I can do it with a rake. See how quick and easy it is? And those spuds now are buried, what? About 15 millimetres or 150 mil below the surface. There we are. See how quick and easy, and by the way, from this little bed, and it's only what? 2 metres wide, 4 metres long, I expect to get up to 200 kilograms of spuds, and not only spuds, but the best spuds that you can eat. See how easy that is? You've noticed I didn't put a lot of fertiliser in because the soil's fairly rich, but I'm going to add some. This is sheep manure, and it's all over the surface, and it's well decayed, and it's magnificent. And it'll rot down brilliantly and feed those spuds down below. And all I've got to do now is spread it. I'm having the time of my blooming life. You know why? I'm digging in green manure. It's enriching the soil. And I'll tell you what it's all about. Let's look at this green manure closely. You saw me sow this stuff. I even emptied out seed packets. And this stuff here, most of it, believe it or not, it's sunflower seeds. It's parrot food. And there's also beans here coming up. Right? And here's all sorts of other little leafy things. But the great characteristic of all this stuff is that it's soft and it's sappy and it's lush and it's marvellous, and it rots down at high speed. And why I'm chopping it down, I can tell you, because it's easy for me to dig in and just chopping it down like that and trampling on it. It's absolutely lovely to do, and it's wonderful for the soil. Now, before this lot wilts, and before I dig it in, there's something else. It's manure. This is pulverised cow manure over the top, and some sheep manure. I love this stuff. It's roughly the same as cow manure anyway. And more cow manure. And now to spread it around a bit. You know, this is really like making a most marvellous chocolate layer cake, only this is far more nutritious. You can see most of this organic matter has been dug in. You know it's soft and sappy. It'll rot down with incredible speed, and the soil itself is absolutely crammed with organic matter. And this is ready for our tomato crop next spring. So this is really what it's all about. It really is growing our own fruit and vegetables, but more than that. Not just growing them for ourselves in some exclusive way, but growing them to share, growing our food so we can share it. And more than that, learning how to do it and then helping to teach others too, especially our children, because never forget this. The most important people on earth are our kids. And if we can teach them to grow their own food, and it's easy to do, anyone can do it, and the little ones just love it. And what's happening already? You know, in schools all over Australia, especially the primary schools, they've got gardens like this, often replicas of this type of a garden, where they're growing their own veggies, and the kids absolutely love it. So what's the answer? Well, the answer is quite simple. I'm saying this: let's survive, and let's survive together. We can do it.
And cut! That was the full video of Gardening Australia, a year in Pete's Patch from 2009. So, do you like my content? Please make sure to comment, subscribe, and smash that like button. And after you've done it, you'll be notified when a new video is on my channel. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Happy gardening, everyone!